Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Bucs Report Show. I'm excited to be here. I'm your host, Rick Hughes. We got all kinds of goodies to get into tonight, all kinds of stuff to unpack. All kinds of Buccaneer football has taken place since last time we met. So we've got a lot to discuss, a lot to go over, and I do want to hear from you guys. I'm going to open up the phones and open up the lines for you guys to get a hold of me. Coming up a little bit ahead in a segment called It's Your Turn. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you on that. I've got some questions for you, and I do want to hear from you. I want to hear what you guys have to say. So, and in the meantime, in the chat, like I see Nelson Hernandez is out there making comments. I want to say hi to Nelson. I want to say hi to all of you who are out there. You guys are, I sort of call you the parrot army. An army of parrots is called pandemonium. It's called a pandemonium, and sometimes the chat can get to be a little bit like pandemonium. So that's what sort of why I call you guys the parrot army. But Ben Parrish, hello, and all of you out there, Christopher Cole, how are you guys doing tonight? Go Bucs, go Bucs. I'm excited about this year. It's going to be a great year. And the reason I say that is things keep getting better. The Buccaneers re-signed all 22, and everybody thought, wow, that's great. That's unheard of. And then they got better. They signed Giovanni Bernard, and folks, Giovanni Bernard, everybody's talking about the pass. Everybody's talking about his ability to receive the ball. He's a pass-catching back. Everybody's talking so much about his receiving yards and his ability. Tom Brady always, he loves backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield, blah, blah, blah. But what I think is the really, really big deal is the fact that this guy can pick up the blitz like no other. This guy is phenomenal at picking up the blitz, and that's going to protect Tom Brady. He's sort of taking LaShawn McCoy's spot on the roster, but this is not LaShawn McCoy, who's going to, just like he did with the Chiefs the year before and last year with the Bucs, LaShawn McCoy disappeared. I don't think this guy is going to disappear. I think this guy is going to be something that's going to impact this team, impact the games all year long. So I do think that the person that I guess is going to have the biggest question mark by them now is Ronald Jones, because I think if you have Giovanni Bernard and Leonard Fournette in that backfield, that's a pretty formidable backfield with two really scary weapons that complement each other. And I think when you're talking complementary football, this is going to be pretty awesome. So I'm excited about it. We'll see what happens. The draft. Here comes the draft. Get ready. It's time to start digging into that. It's time to get into, there's so much to talk about. It's funny. When you look up NFL news now, half the news stories or more are all mock drafts. This expert's mock draft, that expert's mock draft, who this person, it's all, there are so many mock drafts that are out there. And the one thing I have noticed is that the Buccaneers have been linked to pretty much almost every position out there. I've heard them linked to quarterbacks. I mean, no, are they going to go after Kyle Trask? Are they going to try to get a quarterback at 32 to develop under Brady? Blah, blah, blah. We've all heard that. We've heard, are they going to get a running back? Etienne, maybe. Who knows? I mean, that's the dream. That there are so many different things. You're hearing about running backs, maybe. You hear edge rusher. Are they going to go after an edge rusher? Defensive depth. What are they going to do when it comes to that? You hear all of that. And guys, I think it's funny that there's so much that's said, but nobody knows anything. And I find that funny, especially at pick 32. You have no idea how the draft is going to go. I promise you, every year, someone falls. Someone falls in the draft. Someone will fall to the Bucs position. That's not a maybe. That's not a most likely. Someone will fall to the Bucs position. And then the question becomes, do you trade that position? Do you trade out of that position to somebody who wants that guy that's falling? Do you take the guy that's falling? Do you trade up? There are so many different options. And I think it's kind of funny as you look at when you think about the draft. I've heard the Bucs, like I said, connected to absolutely every position. Pretty much the only thing I have not heard the Buccaneers connected to is tight end and kicker. And, well, Jason Light. The thing is that those are just about the only two positions that I have not heard yet about. So I'm interested in seeing how this whole thing's going to fall, because literally this draft is fun because anything can happen. It's crazy. Anything. The Bucs can do literally anything. And I don't know what you guys are expecting. We've got some guests coming in that I think are gonna help touch on that. We have Joshua Cole Allen, who will be here a little bit later. Joshua, if there's somebody who knows the draft, it's Joshua. He talks to the guys that are in the draft. He's around this. He's in this mix. He's as deep as you can get. He's knee deep in this. I was calling, the chat area pandemonium, and I see all you guys out here commenting. Very much appreciated. Hey, Matt. Hey, Mike. How is everybody doing, Chilton? You guys are all out there. Thank you, guys. Much appreciated. Even when I'm not talking about your specific comments, I'm reading them, and they do help guide the show. So I do appreciate that. And Christopher Cole, about Marshawn Lynch, the comment Christopher Cole just brought up. I tagged you in a comment about Marshawn Lynch. I said we got to get him. Marshawn Lynch made a comment that last year the Bucs apparently, according to him, the way he said, he was in communication regarding coming to the Bucs, and then he clarified and said it was last year. It was Tom Brady that he spoke with, but we don't know what the depth of that communication was. We don't really know what the details were on that. And you're right. We got to get him, Christopher. Everybody says it for every single free agent that's out there. It's insane. Every single guy. I've heard it for Richard Sherman. I've heard it for Patrick Peterson. Marshawn Lynch, who's retired and fully admits that he's out of shape and not in game shape or anything. We got to get him. Julian Edelman, who has a knee that doesn't work. We got to get him. I mean, it's something we hear all the time. So, guys, it's going to happen with everybody. The crazy thing is, every once in a while it comes true. Like Giovanni Bernard. Every once in a while it comes true. Every once in a while somebody comes in and wow, the Bucs got better. They didn't just take their 22 back. They weren't satisfied with just taking 22 back. They decided to get better. And that's kind of important. I mean, it's a mindset. It's the culture that got them a championship last year. So it's exciting. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Let's see what happens. I know Matt Colson is saying, Ben Parrish talks about trade Rojo. Matt Colson says bye-bye, Rojo. Listen, nothing is going to surprise me at this point. But if they draft a running back, where do you put them? I mean, somebody's got to go. Somebody's got to go. And if you draft a running back, you end up with a glut at that position. And some team's going to be willing to give something for an almost 1,000-yard rusher last year. So that you got to figure that's a possibility. But, we will see. We will see. Mel Kiper, I know, has talked about the Bucs drafting a defensive tackle out of Alabama, Barmore, and wide receiver. He also talked about wide receiver, and I'm sorry if I say this guy's name wrong, Fehoko, I may say his name wrong, out of Stanford. I've literally heard every position. You guys in chat, where do you think the Bucs should draft someone? I want you to go ahead and put it in the chat. Put it there and tell me who you think the Bucs, even if you don't know the player's name, if you can choose a position, if you could say draft anybody, draft somebody who plays and fill in the blank. I want to hear what you guys are thinking. I think that's kind of my thought process is I don't care. This is going to be fun. I mean, given perfect world, yeah, let's trade down and just end up with a glut of draft picks next year. And then in next year's draft, when it comes along, and maybe you can't re-sign some of these guys for that 1-year contract, now you've got this bevy of picks that you can sort of replenish, reload. And so I think planning ahead for that, I kind of like that idea. I see Johnny Dean out there. Johnny, it's fantastic having you out there. Johnny is, for everybody who doesn't know, Johnny is we call him the professor. He knows an awful lot about football. So it's great to get the information and pick his brain. All right, there's been some changes as far as replay officials. The replay official and this is very key. I want you to hear this. The replay official and designated members of the officiating department may consult with on-the-field officials to help advise game officials on specific objective aspects of play when clear and obvious evidence is present. The bottom line is this. No, a replay official can't throw a flag, but a replay official can, and apparently by the way they word this, and this I thought was important, it says replay official and designated members of the officiating department can contact and be in contact with on-field officials. Let's say there's a very obvious penalty or something very obvious that was missed. These people, multiple, can be in contact with on-field officials who can then make a choice and make a move and do something accordingly. That's a big deal because supposedly, remember those little huddles that we had with officials? And it was always amazing to me. I always wondered if this wasn't happening anyway. Now they're just making it official. But I always wondered if the league's not in their ear telling them, because they all get together and they stand around and they talk and they talk and they talk, and suddenly, miraculously, they change a call, they do something where all of a sudden, miraculously, after the replay is shown 5 or 6 times, they have the right call. And I wonder if this hasn't been happening in some way, shape, or form for a while. But it's now official that there will be people talking to the replay official and the designated members of the officiating department can be in communication and can basically correct any obvious mistakes. Should have been that way all along. I don't know why it wasn't that way all along. Now, what is not changing, there was a lot of rumor about instead of an onside kick, they were going to change the rule to where you would have a 4th and 15, like deep in your own territory, and if you got that first down, then you had the ball. You would just, let's say you score a touchdown with a minute left. All right, you're down by 8 points, 9 points. You score a touchdown. There's a minute left. You can now get the ball back on your own 30. You start off at 4th and 15. If you get that 15 yards, you get a first down, you got a minute to drive. That is not going to happen. They are not even going to apparently vote on that this year. They've tabled it until next year. So that's one of the things that's going on. Greg Rosenthal of the NFL Network called Jason Licht the third best GM. There's an article on Bucs Report about this. If you go to bucksreport.com, there's an article by Evan Winter about this, talking about how Jason Licht is the third best GM, and Greg Rosenthal gives some pretty solid reasoning behind that. But do you guys agree with that? Do you think he's the third best? I mean, after last year, when you think of a general manager who can bring in this head coach, bring in the best player of all time, the GOAT. Some people say arguably the GOAT. It's not arguable. I don't even think it's debatable. He brings in the best of all time. Then he brings in Rob Gronkowski, who is certainly one of the best tight ends of all time, if not the best. He brings in, he basically fashions a team, a dream team. It's almost a dream team. And he gets called number 3 in the league. I don't know. To me, Jason Licht deserves a lot more respect. I think it's slow coming. I think he'll get there. I think it's because of everything that he was saddled with in the first years of his career. Being handed Lovie Smith and Jeff Tedford. Being handed Dirk Cutter and Mike Smith. Those were not his choices, guys. He didn't go out and recruit them and get them. These are guys he was handed. He was told, you're going to have to deal with these guys. That's hard for any general manager. He finally got his guy in here with Bruce Arians, and I think it's made all the difference because everybody is working together. The gears are all functioning together now, and I think that makes a big difference. So I'm not sure. I do want to hear from you guys on what you think is going to happen. Now, Cleveland Browns cut defensive tackle. He's a starter, Sheldon Richardson, to save $11 million on salary cap. So crank up the rumor mill again, guys. Like Christopher Cole said, we're gonna get him. Everybody's gonna say it. It's gonna get started. That's how it goes. But you know, that's sort of welcome to welcome to free agency. That's how things work. We also have coming up. We have Old Salty Buck coming in here. He's going to be here a little bit later on tonight in about an hour or so, and I'm looking forward to hearing from him. And like I said, Joshua Cole Allen will be calling in shortly, and this guy is the draft. I'm going to call him the draft guru here at Bucs Report. Love having this guy around. We did a podcast with him last night. You guys check out the new Bucs Report podcast. Joshua gets kind of in depth on that. Next week, we're really going to do a deep dive. And all of that's coming, guys. Get ready. All of that is coming. And so is news about the Bucs Report draft party. All of that is coming up. And, you know, it'll all be coming soon. So where the Bucs Report will be during the draft, what we're going to do, how it's all going to work itself out, all that news is coming. And it's big news. And it's good news. It's going to be a lot of fun. So get ready, guys. Saddle up. It's going to be a good time. All right. Teresa, hello. How you doing? All of you out there, how are you guys doing? I want to go ahead and open up the phones and open up a link, which I will put on here shortly, because right now, guys, it's time. It's your turn. All right, guys, here is the phone number. Feel free to give me a shout. Let's talk. let's talk. I want your take on some of these things. Like, who do you think the Bucs should draft, or what position? Even if not, who do you think they should draft? Even if you're not, if you're not going to sit here and say this player or that player. Let's just talk position of need, most need today. Let's get into that a little bit. If you don't want to make a phone call, you can always come in via audio, or if you got the real guts, you can come in on video right here on StreamYard. I just put the link up, but it is your turn. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear, everything going on in your head. What do you think is right around the corner for the Bucs? I mean, I think we've beat the Antonio Brown thing into the ground. I don't think there's much more to say about that. That's just been talked about and talked about and talked about. Hopefully he resigns, but maybe not. But I want to hear from you guys. So it is your turn. Call, connect right here on the link that I gave you, whatever you would like. I know we got some folks out there that I recognize. I want to hear from you guys. Come on, bring it. You guys are being quiet, and I know you have thoughts. You know how I know you have thoughts? Because you message me all the time with your thoughts. So come on, let's hear you. Let's hear from you. Some of you who are new, I'd like to hear from you. Dimitri Thomas, I'd love to hear from you. Teresa, come on, Teresa, join this show. I have not heard you on this show. Come on out of the woodwork. Let's go, guys. Let's bring it and let's talk Bucs. That's what we're here for. I know you're here for that. There's so much to talk about. Mike DeRoche. Come on, man. Matt Colson. Where are you guys? Okay. I also want to know something that I think is interesting. How do you prepare for the draft? When you sit down on draft day, when you get there on draft day, when the time comes and you plop down in front of the TV, what news? I mean, what have you read? Where do you get your information before you get into the draft? Where do you cull that information? How do you come up with an opinion? Because I know you guys have opinions. Where does it come from? I want to know the workings. I want to know. It's your turn, guys. Come on. I want to know from you guys what the deal is. Where do you guys get your info? How do you have an opinion on the draft? I'm certainly looking forward to hearing that. You guys are so quiet tonight. It's amazing. It's your turn and you're not taking it. There's so much more to talk about, though. Okay, so the Bucs brought back Russ Cockrell. First of all, let's talk about him. I believe that this is a very big signing. I think Russ Cockrell filled in. I mean, when I remember multiple plays, actually in sequence, that Russ Cockrell was. He was not just Ross Cockrell was not just sort of important. I mean, he had several big plays in a row, and he filled in a way like everybody talks about. You want these big name players, and I hear you that you're wanting Patrick Peterson, or you're wanting. I can't think of his name now. My mind just went blank. I think he was with San Francisco last year. Made his name in Seattle. I know you guys want these guys that are recognizable. And then Ross Cockrell comes in, and you guys are like, yeah, whatever. Guys, this is the Bucs are bringing back their depth. They got all the starters signed, and everybody was excited about that. But they're bringing back their depth. In the NFL, you always hear how players are and teams at the end of the year. That you'll hear players say, the hard thing to deal with is the fact that this is the last time this group of guys is going to play together. They always say that at the end of the year. This is the end of this team. No, this team came back. Like almost all of them. And it's crazy how much have almost come back. I mean, it's an amazing thing. Let's talk to Matt from Oklahoma City. How you doing, Matt?
I'm good, man. Hang on.
I'm hanging.
I wanted to call in and get the thing started. People are afraid to call up.
I know they are, and I don't know why.
Let them know we're not taking any information. There's no cookies. Inconspicuous.
No, but if you have cookies, you can always send them. I'm always good with that. I'm always good with that. But now, like, where do you get your information for the draft? Like, when you sit down in front of the draft, right? It's night one of the
Yeah.
draft. You know, you're plopping down in front of the couch, or you're going to a sports bar. First of all, which one? What do you do? Where do you watch the draft?
At home.
Okay.
I'd rather sit in my comfy room
Yeah.
than spend $15,000 on booze.
Okay, so you got
But-
so you got your pajamas on. You know,
There you
you're wearing
go.
your
That's it.
Yep, you're wearing your over underwear, and then you know that so you plop down in front of the screen, and you know I'm sure you've got a refreshing beverage of some sort and some food, and you're ready to go, and we'll get into that tomorrow. But
Right.
where is it? What, like, by that point you probably have some idea of who you would like them to draft, and is it something that
Well,
you're
what I
so
do-
yeah? Go ahead.
Well, what I normally do is I don't pay attention to anything right now. I'll wait for the last week
Right.
and the days coming up on the draft, because I don't care about mock draft 22 or
Right.
whatever, and the 700 other guys that got the same number.
All right.
So I'll wait until it gets a little closer to game time, and usually I watch ESPN or NFL.com, the talking head shows, just to get an idea what they're talking about. Because
Right.
and what I think we need over the last couple of years hasn't always matched,
Right.
but we've done well, so I
So-
can't complain.
So you sort of
I
take
just-
you take what you think we need. You sort of match it up as best you can with guys, you know, that you see
Right.
going in the
And-
draft around that point. Right.
In my case, if we're going to take a 32nd pick, I think we still need to do depth on defensive line and offensive line. That should be the primary concern, in my opinion. I don't know why we'd bother with getting a fifth running back to put into camp, or a tight end to put on the practice squad, or whatever heck else that you might
Right.
want to do.
Right.
We're uniquely in a position this year that we haven't had in 30 years to pick the best guy on the board.
Right.
And the best guy on the board, if it's another Tristan Wirfs, somebody made a comment about that.
Right.
That would be perfect. And
Yeah.
honestly, I was those people 3 years ago. I thought Jason Light was kind of losing it.
Right.
I didn't expect him to stick around.
Right.
But since he came in with Arians, it looks like they know what they're doing, and they've got a plan, and they're sticking to it, and it's working. Because our draft quality, we don't have a lot of throwaways off of it.
Right.
And the big name drafts that we're doing in the first, second, third round,
Yep.
they're making the team.
Yeah.
And that's a sign that they're picking correctly, and
Right.
and the quality of the player is there. And
Well, last year they didn't
And
just
they're
make
gonna
the
take the
team.
best.
Yeah. Last year they didn't just make the team they started and had a pretty big impact.
right,
Yeah.
I mean, Tristan Wirfs came in with no preseason, no OTAs, nothing,
Yeah.
and he played a hell of a year.
He
And if he'd been on
dominated,
any
yeah.
other team in the hierarchy, he would have been in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
And that's going to come eventually. But if he had been on,
It'll come this year.
Dallas or-
I cannot fathom he will not be in the Pro Bowl this year.
yeah, I don't. If he has the same kind of year this year, we're going to be in great shape.
Yeah.
So in the 32nd position, I've told you I don't see the benefit of taking that pick. I think the benefit would be trading it, but they could package something to come up to like 20 if
Right.
they really needed to,
Yep.
and get some kind of gem that's on the board. That's what is fun about the draft.
Right.
When Jason and Bruce get together and they start looking at the board, and then they figure out whatever's going on, they have had so many players. O.J. Howard fell in their lap. They had Tristan Wirfs fall in their lap. And it's amazing how that's worked out,
Yeah.
and they've done very well with it. So
Yeah.
I'll start looking forward to it here in a week or two and get a little bit more in depth with it. But that's where I am right now.
Okay. I appreciate it, Matt.
Yep, that's my 3 minutes. Somebody else needs to call and keep you
We
busy.
got Johnny. We got Johnny on here now. The professor Johnny Dean is all lined up and ready to go.
Very good. I'll pass the baton. You guys have a good night.
Thanks, Matt. Hang
I'll
around.
talk to you later.
Yep. All right. Awesome. Now let's bring in Johnny Dean. Johnny, how you doing, my friend?
How's it going, man?
Good. Good. Good.
I was
The
trying to fire your chat up a little bit. I put some Sheldon Richardson talk in there,
well,
and
that ought to get it going. We got to get him. No, I mean, there are a lot of good players that end up being available. It's not that easy to
Richardson, I
afford
can
them.
see probably like Joshua was talking about. I see that was a bit of a perfect scenario where he signs a 1 year deal with somebody this year, and then he's available next year when we need
Who's
somebody
that?
to replace Sue. Sheldon Richardson,
Yeah,
his stat line is he is a clone of Dominican Soon,
right.
basically.
Yeah, it'd be fun to.
Uh,
Yeah, it'd be nice to have him next year.
yeah,
If Sue doesn't,
or
yeah, if
or
Sue,
if they decided to do the unthinkable like they've been doing the last 2 years and grab him right now, that would be a great rotation, man. Can you imagine that rotation?
I'm done. I'm done saying no. They're not going to do that. That's ridiculous. I'm
Yeah,
done saying
I
that
know,
because
that's
they
right.
just keep doing ridiculous
Every
things.
time
Yeah,
because I was thinking about it earlier, and I said, "Oh, that's stupid. There ain't no way they ain't got no capital. They can't do that. They can't
right.
do this." But then again, who knows? This
Yeah,
team
yeah.
might.
All of a sudden, there's a. Oh, by the way, you know.
He's still sitting in that pentagram with them candles lit, man.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. That's what it's like. I mean, I don't know what kind of voodoo is happening over at the Advent Health Facility, but something crazy is going on. I
I
mean,
posted a question down there.
what's
I
that?
think you might be interested in how many Pro Bowlers from the Bucks this year will be selected? 3 over or under?
Wow.
If you
That
start going
is.
down this roster, man, that's going to
I
drive me nuts.
don't. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you go down the roster and you say that the Pro Bowl selections will be fair, I'll give it the over. But rarely are the Pro Bowl selections fair. So yeah, I don't know that you can automatically say yeah it's gonna
I
be an
think they're
over
going to get a
just
lot more
because it
fan
should
vote.
be.
I think the Bucks are going to get a lot more fan vote this year too
Yeah,
because of last
yeah,
year's.
yeah. All of a sudden, well, everybody likes a winner, don't they?
Absolutely, everybody
Yeah,
likes somebody they can actually see once in a while too.
yeah. If I mean, we go through the quote unquote obvious choices. And then, of course, best of the Bay, Ray Kennedy would call up and say, "Well, suck up." So, uh,
Hey, they got to
yeah,
have a kicker in the Pro Bowl
hey,
too.
well,
So
that's
why not?
exactly right. It's exactly right. So at this point, listen, at this point, I refuse to say anything is impossible with this team. At this point, I'm just going to kick back and watch. And when people, you know, there are crazy predictions out there. There really are crazy people. People are saying crazy stuff and have crazy high expectations for this team. But the thing that I find, I'll call it heartening, the thing that I love to see is how fired up Arians is to do it again.
Absolutely,
He's not just
absolutely.
coming in like I mean I half expected Bruce to be sort of doing a victory tour.
Right.
And he came back hotter this year than he did last year. I mean it's funny to hear his to hear him now in press
Well,
conferences.
he came to Florida and found the Fountain of Youth in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I mean, he came back and he's fired up. He wants. I mean, he's like, I'm gonna kick their butts around all over the place. I'm gonna make life miserable for these guys who think that they're champions because they're not champions.
All
Last
you got to
year,
do is put those Vegas odds up there and show them that they still got the Chiefs ahead of you
yeah,
guys.
yeah. Well, what I find funny is Bruce came out and said, this team's not champions. Last year's team was champions. Bruce, it's the same team.
That sounds so familiar, man. That sounded like Brian Billick talking to his team when they won that Super Bowl
Yeah,
championship.
yeah.
Evidently, his team didn't listen to him, though.
Well, it wasn't the same team that came back.
Right,
That's the funny
right.
thing is when he says that wasn't
Well, yeah,
this
look
year's
who
team,
they
it was last
lost. They
year's.
lost, oh, man, what was his name? Woodson. They lost
Yeah,
Woodson that
yeah,
year. They lost
yeah,
Dion. Dion was with that team. They
and
lost
yeah,
Dion.
yeah.
Uh,
It's
shoot,
just
I
funny
can't
to
remember.
me, man. It's funny to me, Johnny, that the Bucks are. I think the Bucks are a very, very. Excuse me. The Bucks are very. They're solid, but they seem like they have a solid attitude. They're not just solid by position. They're
Yeah,
solid by mentality.
exactly. And it seems to be a team attitude also. It's not just one or two players that are holding the line. It's the whole team. It seems to be like they're all focused.
Yeah, and it doesn't. They don't seem satisfied, and that's the funny thing. It's like they're all catching that Brady disease,
Yeah,
and
I'd like to call them hungry, but I don't want to use that old expression that we had before.
right, right, Youngry. Oh, it's still out there though. It's still out there, but I don't know. I mean, I don't see. I don't. Let's just say I didn't expect. Maybe that's a better way to put it. I didn't expect this team to sound this hungry. To sound like I want this again. Maybe they remember all the losing. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't expect the NFL Network and them to pick up on them this way. They didn't do this in
Well, Brady.
2002.
Well, no, but Brady. I mean, come
Right,
on.
right.
It's
But you think when they talk about the Bucks, they're talking about the Packers or the Cowboys.
right, right. Yeah, it's crazy because I mean everybody loves the Bucks this year. It's funny because I hear so many people who are not Bucks fans or even like, yeah, I'm happy about the Bucks. There's a guy installing appliances in my house, and he's not a Bucks fan. He's actually a Cowboys fan, and he said, "Yeah, I really like Brady. I like tell me about this podcast and this show you do because I want to listen because yeah, I really like Brady and I love football, and I'm like, wow, I mean that's the kind of thing right there, and this is what I find fascinating to me when all the Bucks fans get territorial, and I sort of get it because if you were a Bucks fan through all of the hard years and then somebody just hops on the bandwagon, you feel like, no, wait a minute, you didn't pay your dues, and I get that, But the thing is this, and this is why I say, come one, come all. I don't care if you're brand new and you're just hopping on, not just because you'll probably stick around, or some of these people will stick around. I'm saying it because, come on, come on, it sure is a lot more fun cheering in a packed stadium. I remember those days when it was wall to wall, people screaming on one side, Tampa, the other side screaming Bay, and you couldn't hear. It was so loud. I remember those days. And, to the dream of a packed stadium again is just phenomenal. And can you imagine? I mean, really seriously, yeah, man, the first home Super Bowl ever, and they couldn't pack the place. That's a bummer. That is a bummer. But I mean, the fact that, can you imagine what it's going to be like in week one if the stadium is packed and Tom Brady leads the team out on the field? That place is going to be, with all due respect to the Parrot Army, pandemonium. That place
Absolutely.
is going to be crazy. And that's what I
Absolutely.
love about the Parrot Army. I love you guys out there. You're talking, you're hyped up, you're jacked up about the Bucks, and there's so much to be excited about. I mean,
They're
picture the
playing in
stadium.
Los Angeles next year, right?
Yeah,
Well, I got news for you. That place is going to be packed with Bucks fans too, because Buckaholics show up strong out there.
yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Hey, did you hear what I said about the officiating and the change in the replay official and the
Yeah, I did.
yeah? What did you think about that?
I, as long as they're not going down there to discuss last week's barbecue and just wind the time out,
Right.
yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I think it should speed it up, but
Yeah.
everything they do seems to have a backlash to it for some reason.
Yeah, well, they've made some weird decisions, but doesn't it seem like? I mean, am I crazy when I see the officials gather and they're just standing there, and it doesn't seem like they're really talking? I mean, I'm sure they're saying a little bit, but
Yeah, that's what I was talking. That's what I was
yeah,
referring to. Is
yeah.
like they're talking about the next door neighbor's wife or something.
Well, yeah, I think I think they've been in contact with the replay official. I think they've been in contact with the league office during that time. I just think they haven't been admitting it. I think now they're just sort of, opening up and saying, yeah, okay, now this is what we're going to be able to do. The replay official can't throw a flag, can't do anything like that, and I get that. I get it because every play, some angle is going to show, some sort of penalty or some sort of whatever. And the last thing I want is replay officials calling pass interference.
I'm going to call a Matt Colson conspiracy thing here.
What's that?
Matt's the king of conspiracies. So
What's that?
I always thought that they did that on purpose for the broadcaster timeout.
Oh,
Talking about.
yeah, but they're trying to shorten the game all the time, so it's hard for me to believe that they were lengthening that way. But yeah, I
They
mean,
might be shortening the game, but there's the time of the broadcast is the same. So
no, I'm saying they're trying to shorten the time of the broadcast because it was getting longer there. It was getting more like college. It was like 3.5 hour games, and I don't know. I mean, well, Johnny, how do you prepare for the draft? Where do you watch the draft?
I watch it right here.
Okay, so you watch it at home, and you're
This year, if it looks okay,
uh huh.
I can take that 2 hour ride up to Cleveland and check it out.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So, all right, but most years, all right, you watch it at home. Where do you get your information in advance? What's your go-to when you sit down in front of there? Have you been studying it for weeks and weeks and weeks and going back to the previous year? Do you do a crash course?
I turn on a lot of local colleges.
Okay.
At first, at the beginning of the season, I
Okay.
watch a lot of local colleges, like the small schools,
Right.
Buffalo and Towson in Baltimore, and those schools like that, to see if, because they stand out a little bit more right away. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And then as the season goes on, I start going through the other schools.
Right.
And then I'm just like, I got 6 screens filled with college football. And then
Right.
that's what I do during the week. And then Sundays, it's all NFL. But then I start gathering tape. And you can get that tape with the NFL Access,
Yeah.
coaches tape and stuff. And then I start gathering that and start looking through it.
Well, the all 22 film and all of that, but I mean, I guess for me, to be honest, I am not the guy who I don't start at the beginning of the college football season and dive deep into watching these games and remembering these players and getting these players at different positions. And I mean, if one week I sit down and I'm watching, I don't know, it doesn't even matter. Let's say I was watching Georgia play whoever Georgia's playing, right? And honestly, I'm probably not gonna remember the offensive lineman or know that much about it. I'm not gonna go back and watch the all 22 from that game. And there's how many colleges, how many games are going on each year?
There's at least what is it? There's 300 people that are at least eligible for the draft. And
so I don't
go through all of that.
So
a good guideline for that is the WalterFootball.com thing.
Right, Walter Football.
That gives you a starting point to check into these guys.
Yeah, because that to me is I don't know, and also get in touch with Joshua Cole Allen and listen to Joshua Cole Allen.
I do the opposite. I tune out everybody, man.
Really?
If I start listening to DJ, which is very good, Daniel Jeremiah is very good.
Right.
But if I start listening to him or Bucky or anybody else, then I start getting biased. You know what I mean?
Right.
I try to stay as unbiased as possible in my evaluations.
Okay, well that's fair. I mean, I'm the opposite. I rely on those experts. I rely on those people. That to me is pretty important because I'll sit down, I'll have fun, I'll watch college games, I'll laugh, I'll cheer, I'll whatever during the games, and when the game's over, it's pretty much over. I mean, I've got my favorite teams that I'll watch, and I'll know the players on my favorite teams, but beyond that, I'm not an expert when it comes to college. So
I found out a long time ago, you don't fall in love with a player, period. If you fall in love with a player, you're biasing yourself. And I do tend to like a player above others, but that's because of his play, not because I care about him at all, but because of his play on the field.
Well, I want to bring up something that I find funny. Why is it, I know a lot of people who they won't like a player because of the college they went to.
Oh, that's why
I've heard I don't know how many FSU players, how many FSU fans, that when you bring up Kyle Trask, he's a Gator. No, he's not a Gator. He used to be, but he's not now. And it's I don't care where you're from. I don't care what school you're from. I don't care what whether you beat my team multiple times, over the last several years. I don't care. What I care about is I care about winning.
Right.
And okay, I'll say this flat out. I'm a Gator fan, right? Now I'm
Right.
surrounded by people who are I am surrounded by folks who are FSU fans.
Right.
And
so you're getting a lot of hate.
well, I mean, the Gators get a lot of hate, and that's fine. And I'm yeah, fine. I don't care. But I don't care if an FSU player comes in. Awesome. I mean, I wanted Jameis. I mean, I know I said the J word. Sorry, I apologize to everyone. But
He whose name shall not be spoken.
right. But it's to me. I just don't care because all I want to do is get who I think is going to help us win the most. And to be honest, I don't know who that is until weeks before the draft when I started a crash course. Getting all the information, soaking up as much as I can. So at least for the first couple of rounds, I'm familiar with the guys that may be going. And, but it's not that important to me. And there have been drafts that I've sat down and been like, all right, I don't know who anybody is. Let's go. Let's have some fun. Right. I remember the Josh Freeman draft. The one guy I knew a little bit about in the draft, the one other than the big names, the one other guy that I knew a little bit about was Josh Freeman. And I remember my buddy, I went over to somebody's house to a party, and I was with my buddy, and the one thing I said to him in the car, he brings this up constantly. The one thing I said in the car is, there's one guy I don't want. The one guy I don't want, Josh Freeman. He's the only guy I don't want. I don't care who else they draft. I don't care. I'm wide open.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, well, as they say, the rest is history.
Kyle Trask, as is all of these guys, is a developmental player. And if he goes to right, I don't see him getting drafted before this third round, honestly. Him and Justin Mills are interesting subjects. Trask could fit in a Bucs system, and he could run behind Brady. And I could see him being backup in a couple of years, or maybe next year. Actually, it depends on how much they're spending on a backup. You know what I mean?
Well, I've stopped guessing on quarterbacks. I've stopped trying to act like we know what the heck we're talking about when it comes to quarterbacks. I don't think we know. I think the guy can get in there and develop.
What system we're going to implement after Brady either?
Well, exactly.
That's a whole big.
That's my concern about drafting a quarterback to quote unquote develop him now, because we don't know what's about to happen. Now, if Byron Leftwich takes over, you got to figure it's going to be pretty much the same system. Okay.
The system that they have around Brady right now is pretty much quarterback proof, saying that all the guy has to do is go in there and don't throw interceptions and don't make a bunch of mistakes, right? And yet we had Jameis. Just manage the game, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly, with Jameis. But it's hard to say where they're going to go. So choosing a quarterback is like throwing dice, man.
Right. Well, Johnny, I got to go because we have Joshua Cole Allen waiting in the lobby. Thank you for coming on and contributing and walking our way through the It's Your Turn segment. So thank you.
All right. See y'all later, bro.
Appreciate it. All right. Right now, let's bring in the guy. This guy knows more about this draft than if I started studying constantly right now until draft day. I would never be able to catch up. He talks to the guys in the draft. He's connected into this whole thing. Joshua Cole Allen, how you doing, brother?
Doing great. How are you doing tonight?
Doing excellent. Welcome.
Great to be here.
So. First of all, now I know you're in a little bit of a different situation, especially this year with the draft. Okay, you're in a different place. So let's take a walk back into the past. Okay? Go back 3-4 years. Okay? 3-4 years ago. How did you prepare for the draft?
Almost the same exact way. This has been one of my favorite times of the season. There's a website called Football's Future out there, and they do mock drafts, and they do it as so each team has their own forum room. and you select one person to kind of be that manager, and they do mock off seasons down a salary cap. I've always been really interested in the draft, in the off season as a whole. So I've been doing this stuff for over 10 years. This is the first year that I've really kind of been, dived in really deep into studying the tape and breaking down some of these guys. I've always watched, and a majority of my knowledge in the past has come from, other people, going on different sites, whether it's Pro Football Focus, the Draft Network, Draft Bible, any of these, any CBS, any of these websites that have other guys doing the draft breakdowns and kind of reading them and learning about the players. But this year I've actually watched some of the tape on these guys and I've kind of formulated my own opinions more so. But I've always been a draftnik, always been a guy who's been obsessed and loved the draft and loved the whole process. I can go all the way back to Chad Jackson, who was, I think it was like Chad Jackson. If you guys there's some Florida people in here. He's a Florida wide receiver. Let me see when he was drafted. I'll tell you how far back I've been into the draft. I love this dude.
And I'm a Gator fan. And I'm like, wait a minute, who? I don't even know. I'm
2005. So
okay, way back. You were like So you got into the draft when you were like 7 years old. Yeah.
I'm not that young. No, that was a senior year of high school.
Okay.
Not as heavily, but as it progressed, I mean, making my own mock drafts and team by team, and I've always kind of been an off-season draft type of person. But this year, I really dove in on the tape and did my own kind of boards and research and stuff like that.
Right. I'm like right now this week, probably later this week, I'll be diving in and really digesting from all these different sites like you were just mentioning. I'll be going in and I'm getting as much information as I can so that I know who the heck I'm talking about and what the heck I'm talking about, and at least
I'll give you a cheat sheet.
Yeah, I could use that.
Because when you look at these sites, and you're going to find out, because I still look at these sites too. I still look because these guys they're professionals. They're the ones talking to them. They're the ones dialed into the coaches and scouting departments, getting this information and know what teams and scouts like more than anybody out there. So, but the discrepancies you'll see. I mean, the first couple are very good, but once you get into that second half of the first round and going into the second, third, fourth, like the rankings and where they have this person or this person, it can be second round grade, and then the one person will have them as a fourth round grade, the other one will have them as a third round grade, and then a fifth round grade. It's been really crazy. And speaking of Mel Kiper, I actually asked him about that. Good old Mel Kiper, but
I was talking about him earlier tonight, and who he has talked about the Bucs drafting.
Yeah, I spoke with him and I asked him. I'm like, because he was talking about rises and falls on this conference call. How a guy like Davian Nixon we had as a first round draft pick. I mean, if you look at back, I was debating on him in my very first mock draft as potentially being the number one pick at 32. Greg Allman of The Athletic, very much respect for him. He had him at number 32 overall in his very first mock.
So I got a question.
Now he's going into the third, maybe fourth round. So I mean, you can see how from the first to the fourth is a big drop. Yeah. It's just because there's a lot of volatility this year.
I got a question for you. I got a question, and let's see if we can actually get an honest answer out of you. And rather than spewing all the knowledge and all of that, my question is this: going back to high school, you've been a draftnik. All of these years, all of this time, you spent loving the draft. Mm-hmm. Honestly, what's it like to sit here and say, "Yeah, well, I was talking to Mel Kiper the other day."
It's weird. It's crazy. It's amazing. I've never thought I'd be here. I've always been obsessed with football. I was late to getting to football. My mom, she was a single mother, so I didn't have that father figure who was like, we're going to watch sports or whatever. So I was late. I didn't start playing football until 8th grade. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the whole process. Then I fell in love with the off season. I mean, I'd watch games here and there. I go back until watching the Patriots back into 95, 96. I'd still watch them, but I didn't understand the game as much. And once I started playing and I understood it, and I just developed this unhealthy obsession for it, going to games all the times, and being able to sit here and say that not only am I talking to Mel Kiper, who I've watched for years now, 20-something years now on TV, and break down these draft prospects.
Well, he's iconic.
Yeah, you're Shea too. It's been it's been crazy. But this whole year has been crazy for me, and I have nothing but the most gracious respect and love for Buck support for being able to put me into this position. Never in 1,000 years would I think I'd be talking to former MVP Patrick Mahomes or Rob Gronkowski, who I grew up watching and idolizing.
Do you ever stop and take stock? Do you ever stop and does it ever hit you when you're in the moment that you're like, what am I doing? What is happening right now? Where it's like, I'm actually talking, like, if you have a memory, like I can remember the day Warren Sapp got drafted. I remember the couch I was sitting on. I can still feel the material of the couch that I was sitting on when Warren Sapp got drafted. I remember that whole thing. And then, for you, when you flash back and you think back at those drafts and those moments and you put yourself in those, in that seat, probably on the couch at home or wherever. And now you're very quickly becoming one of those guys, Joshua. Does that perspective, does it ever hit you? Do you ever think about those times?
It is crazy, and I remember right back to that 2005 draft, which was one of the first drafts I really got into as as a senior in high school, and sitting there and they took Lawrence Maroney in the first round, and I was like, "What are you doing, Chad Jackson's still there?" I was so upset, I was flipping out, and then they moved up in the second round to get Chad Jackson before Greg Jennings, and now hindsight's 2020.
Now you're like, what were you doing drafting Chad Jackson? Yeah,
I got Chad Jackson. Jersey was my first ever NFL jersey I had. I love the kid. I love the prospect. I love reading about him, watching him play, and everything like that. And I'm not a big college fan, so like when I do my draft stuff, it's always after the season, and I'm looking at highlights, and I'm looking at lowlights, and I'm looking at reading.
So that was my question. Yeah, that's the question I was kind of talking to Johnny about.
But now it's like people are asking me questions, and they're like, "What do you think of this guy? Where do you think
I'm coming to you asking you questions."
I know, but even people like on Twitter who I interact with, and it's kind of it's surreal. It's like it hits me at sometimes. I'm like, wow, I'm really kind of doing this. This is my dream. This is my dream career. This is what I want to be doing, and I'm actually having the opportunity to do it and to speak with these players and these coaches and these
well, you don't just do it, you do it well. And that's the thing, Joshua, is it's one thing to do something, but it's another thing to do it well. And to sit and watch you doing it and knowing, there are different people that are at different places on the curve, right? Where you are in your career, on your way up, at the top, leveling off, or on your way down, and you're just starting. And with where you're at now, it's pretty amazing to sit and watch and to know. I'll brag for Bucs Report right now to sit here and say the fact that we're working with you, the fact that we have the opportunity to work with you. It's a very cool thing. I remember the first time I was listening to one of the press conferences. Who was your first question to?
I think it was O.J. Howard. Or no, Cam Brate. It was Cam Brate.
Okay.
The first one was Cam Brate.
Okay. You got to go back and you've got to see if you can find that tape of that and always hold on to that.
I have it on my phone.
Okay, you've got to have that right. Yeah. Very good. Because that's something to always remember. But, I remember the first time I heard, this is Joshua Cole Allen with the Bucs Report. I just remember being like, I don't even think they mentioned Bucs Report. If I remember right, they just said this is Joshua Cole Allen, and I just remember thinking, that's our guy. It was a cool moment, and a lot of people think you just get handed this opportunity. Okay, you get hired by Bucs Report or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're just, all the ears open, and they don't, and you've had to work very hard to get where you've gotten. I know that. I know how hard you've worked. I've watched the growth and watched from behind the scenes. And I remember early conversations with you, and I remember watching you now. I think about watching you now, and it's fun to sit there and be like, yeah, that guy that's the real deal right there.
Got me all choked up, right?
Well, it's the truth. It's a fun thing to sit and watch you do that. And now you're on okay, Josh was kind of a big deal in this app called Locker Room.
Yeah.
And he was sort of showing me the beginner ropes the other day. Now, I wish I had the time to delve in, but I mean, it's a pretty cool app. Tell everybody a little bit more about the app.
Yeah, locker room is an amazing space to build good community with fans who are love the same sports as you, want to get into dive into knowledge, and even if you don't have the knowledge of it, I went in there and they at first when I first joined, it was really basketball heavy, and it still kind of is leans a little heavier on basketball, but they've got some great football content on there as well. But I didn't know much about basketball. I've learned so much about the game. Just be able to have conversations, and you develop this sense of community family. I know some of you might be familiar with Clubhouse. And Clubhouse, you kind of go on there and you're just sitting there. There's no way to talk to anybody. There's no way to, get your voice heard. You're just kind of listening to a live podcast type deal on that. Well, Locker Room is completely different. There's a chat feature. You can get on there. You can get your voice heard. You can come up on stage if you request to speak. They have all sorts of different athletes on there, media personalities.
So that's my point. Fans, this is an opportunity to be heard by these people. Yeah. Now, most of the time, I want to say this, most of the time with things like Instagram, players have people running their Instagram for the most part. I mean, they'll go check it out and they'll get involved and they will post things from time to time. But a lot of times, their agent has hired somebody, or there are people who hire some marketing folks who are out there curating these athletes' Instagrams and such, so that's how the athlete is getting messages out, making money. There's all kinds of reasons behind it. So when you think you're talking to or interacting with an athlete, you might not be, but on Locker Room, you are.
This is direct to the source. I've spoken with guys like Cliff Averill, former defensive end for the Seahawks, Gerald Worthy, former defensive lineman, guys in the NBA, Miles Turner, Andre Iguodala, Bam Adebayo, a bunch of different other, Kelly Olynyk. There's RJ Hampton was on there, multiple people in sports media, Mark Stein, Asherrod Blakely, Jeff Darlington. The list goes on and on about these incredible guests, people who come on here, not only just come on here, but do rooms and host their own rooms. And you guys can create your own rooms and bring up your own topics, or you can join other people's rooms and talk about the topics going on hand. They do watch parties for games right now. There's a lot of good watch parties for basketball. They did a WrestleMania watch party. They did the Masters watch party. So you can go in there and have real-time conversations with fans who are interested about the same stuff as you. And it's not just the football. There's multiple things going on there right now. I believe there's they do. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Versus battle they do on Instagram.
Yeah.
But right now they're doing music battles, right? So it's this person versus that one. They had Beyonce versus Alicia Keys, or Jay-Z versus Kanye West, or the Rolling Stones versus the Beatles. And, one person represents one band, the other person represents the other artist, and, the crowd picks the winner after each song. And it's pretty cool. Right now, current rooms going on. Isaiah Stewart, best rookie, Dodgers and Padres series matchup, Wolves versus Heat watch party, NBA draft and free agency, NFL draft, Thunder Pistons, Hornets recap. So there's a bunch of different rooms in there, and if those rooms don't appeal to you, you create your own room and get more people in there.
How do the mock drafts work? I know that there are a lot of mock drafts in there. What is it? Does it you go in and do a mock draft and it's all your picks, or is it you and 31 other people? How does that work?
I love that you asked this, because today I did a mock draft. Today, a first-round mock draft with all 32 teams. We included trades, and you can do it if you have enough time. And we've done NBA ones back in the NBA draft, which we had representatives from each team. We're planning a one for the NFL with representatives from each team. But we did about just a group majority. There was about 7 people on stage, about another 11 in the room, just listening and contributing through the chat because they couldn't come on stage. But we went pick by pick, and we did majority rules, and we thought about this and that, and we had trades. And the spoiler alert, the Buccaneers took Jalen Phillips at 32. So that's something that
tell everybody who Jalen Phillips is.
Jalen Phillips, a defensive end, edge rusher, outside linebacker prospect from Miami. He's really one of the best rushers in this draft class. The only problem with him is he has a history of concussions. He was at UCLA, retired, transferred to Miami. They talked him into playing. Gregory Russo sat out, and he flourished. He had an absolute amazing year last year. The only problem is those concussion histories. It's something that teams definitely want to make sure that he's right, and he's going to be his love for football, and he's not going to, retire early on them,
right,
throughout that contract. But potentially one of the best rushers in this draft class, but injury concerns will knock him down a bit.
Okay. Well, and there's always somebody. I was bringing this up earlier. There's always somebody who drops. Always somebody who drops. There's always one or two or more players who drop. And the Bucs are sitting there at 32, and it's not a maybe. It's not possibly. Somebody will drop. Who do you think that guy's going to be? Any ideas? And we can get into this more in depth, but sort of, we'll do that next week. But sort of an overview of guys that you think are at risk of dropping.
And that's the thing, Rick. Guys have been dropped. Next week is going to be a completely different scenario. We've had it happen week by week where guys are falling and dropping. A big name right now to watch is Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech, cornerback. This guy was projected as possibly the first guy off the board at the cornerback position. Now they're talking about him falling into the 20s and maybe down even to the 30s. They did another mock draft, a Bucs only mock draft, 7-rounder on the locker room with a bunch of guys. They came all in, and we all, we did trades and we picked players and stuff like that, and we took Caleb Farley at 32. But because he has back injuries and had a back surgery before, he had a cleanup. And there's a great article out there by Cam Johnson today on Bucs Report talking about the surgery that he had and kind of just breaking him down. But he's a guy that could be there at 32 if people are a little nervous about his back injuries. But there's other guys too. I mean, Gregory Rousseau was a guy who was tabbed as potentially the best defensive end edge rusher in this draft class, and since then he's taken quite a fall. If you were on the Audible last night, we had Justin Mello of the Draft Network. He's got him ranked as at number 40 in his top 100, and this was a guy who was going into the top 15 just about a month and a half ago. So between his pro day and just other things that are coming out, there's risers and fallers all over the place. Another like Jalen Phillips, another guy, he could go in the top 15 as one of these edge rushers. Injury concerns could push him down. Landon Dickerson, another guy who's been mocked to the Buccaneers a lot, center guard out of Alabama, formerly out of FSU. He's had a litany of injury problems, including a torn ACL that he recovered from last year. He could play center or guard, and as we know, that could be a need for the Bucs next year with Jensen and Kappa both on expiring deals. But at the same time, injury risk could push him down into the second round. There's other guys too to look at that have risen up through the draft. Another guy who fell, your guy that you spoke with about Mel Kiper, Christian Barmore, he's a faller. He was projected at maybe 15, 16. Now they're saying 32 or in the second round. A guy who's rose up, I see Johnny Dean in there screaming J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn is a guy who is projected maybe in the mid first round, end of the first round, maybe top of the second, and now he's the second, possibly the first cornerback off the board. So you're seeing it all over the place. The wide receivers, Devontae Smith, Heisman winner, he could fall down into the mid-teens like we saw CeeDee Lamb do.
Well, now Barmore is who? He's out of Alabama, correct? That's the guy that Kiper, right? That Kiper said that he thinks they might pick. Okay.
Yeah. But he was supposed to be 15, 16, somewhere in the teens right there, and he's dropped all the way to 32, potentially in the second round. So there's a lot of guys. Like I mentioned, Davion Nixon, he was tabbed as potentially a first-round draft pick for the Bucs or for other teams. And now Mel Kiper's saying he's a third or fourth-round guy. Kyle Trask, another great example. Some people had him going in the first round, and now he's third or fourth round.
Do you think much of this is smoke? Do you think that? I mean, because you know how this is with teams. There's a lot of smoke that gets thrown out by teams, like, oh yeah, we're not so high on this guy. Yeah, we're not so high on this guy, and it really just trying to turn other teams off to that guy.
It's a little bit of both, I think. As Mel said, there's a lot of volatility, and you're going to see a lot of mock drafts show that, and a lot of big boards show that. It's going to be very hard for teams to put their big board together, just because there was a handful of schools that opted out last year. There was a larger number of players that opted out last year, and then you combine that with the fact that even the schools that didn't opt out, they went to 6-game schedules. Some of these guys only played. A guy like Peyton Turner had a 6-game schedule, only played 5, missed 1 game due to injury, still put up 5 sacks, looked pretty good, but there wasn't that tape. And then you talk about the combine too. I mean, everybody knows that the pro day numbers are kind of a little bit fluffed up a little bit compared to the combine. When you're there, you're speaking to these guys. It's for seniors, it's your second opportunity to speak to them and interview them after the Senior Bowl. It's your time to get there and interview some of these guys for the first time. in person. You didn't have that to get their medicals checked. Everyone's there from all the organizations. It's run by the NFL, so every number is going to be on point. And then you can take those and you can compare those to the pro day. Well, you don't have that. Now you only have the pro days. And for some reason this year, these guys are running faster than ever.
Right.
So I mean, it's been difficult for not only teams and scouts to put, but extremely difficult for guys who are in the media who are trying to cover these. Mel Kiper or Todd McShay, both of them said the same thing. It's been very very difficult, and even Jason.
What's Todd McShay? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say this. What is Mel Kiper going to accidentally get stuff right? I mean, he's had a rough few years. I mean, he really has for it. And I gotta say, I still, as much as he gets so much criticism, if he wasn't there, I would absolutely miss him on draft day. There's no doubt I would miss him big time on draft day.
Yeah, and now they're doing different things where you have the NFL Network does their draft coverage. Last year they combined it with ESPN, but I think they're going solo this year. So you have NFL, you have ESPN, and then ABC will be doing something completely different. ABC will have the guys from College Game Day there with Todd McShay. ESPN will have Mel Kiper with some of those guys on their panel, and then NFL Network will have their own. So you'll have three options on where to watch the draft.
Todd.
Yeah, I'm always partial. I dislike the ESPN one, but I just miss that when the picks come up. I still love that. You know, the ESPN.
I'm looking for, yeah. I'm looking forward to the day when Mel Kiper is yelling at you on a show. That's going to be fun. Josh. I'm looking forward to that day when you get into an argument with him. Or actually, what'll be really, really funny, if we're going to replace the hair, if Mel Kiper's gone, it'll be you getting into it with Jacob Charnow. And that's the future.
He's the hair. He's the Mel, I'm the Shay.
He'll be the new hair. That's right. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, you're okay. So you're someone who you've battled through, to a lot of people want to do what you do. Okay. There are a lot of people who want to do what you do, but there are things that give someone the ability to do it. Like your drive, your determination, your stick-to-itiveness, there have been times I can relate it back to me as a photographer. The times that it was time, you wanted to give up. It was, you wanted to just say, you know what, I'm not getting enough out of this. You wanted to give up. You wanted to do that. And then you push through those, and all of a sudden it's like the parting of the Red Sea, right? It's just all of a sudden, boom, opportunities open up. I mean, you went from, compare last year to this year for you. I mean, when was your first press conference?
I want to say June.
Okay, so
June, beginning of July.
Okay, so June or July was your first press conference. Now you're going to be at the Bucs draft party. You're going to be doing live stuff. This is cool because you're not just kind of there. You're everybody out there in all of the parrot army that's sitting here watching, that are commenting. These are all people who look and go, man, this is like my dream job. This is but you did it. I mean,
I'm working on it.
And that's the thing is you're not where you say, Joshua, it's not like you're saying I've arrived. No, that's my point.
Well, I owe you and a lot of people here at Bucs Report and people who were here at Bucs Report and especially I'm going to call him out by name, Keith, for giving me that support and I'm a very positive reinforcement type of person. If you tell me I'm doing a good job and give me those attaboys, it makes me want to work harder for you, harder for myself, obviously, I mean, you guys do a great job of, pumping me up, and it makes me want to do better for not only for myself, but for Bucs Report and the brand and for the fans. I want to give them good content. That's what it's all about is delivering for the people who are consuming this product and this information. And if I'm doing a bad job at it, then, I shouldn't be here, and I
Well,
want to do
that's
the
the
best
joy
job
of this, isn't it? That is the joy of this, is when you're sitting there and you're looking at, when you're pushing through, and then, all of a sudden you see viewers, or you see, you see success, you see people, I remember you were kind of starting on Twitter like a year ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, now you've got hundreds of followers, and it's fun to watch. But the thing is, tomorrow is, what your tomorrow looks like is promising, and it's great, and it's exciting, and there's so much to think about. But I mean, when it comes to this year's draft, to be sitting there now in the, kind of in the lion's den, I'll call it. I mean, you're at least you're going to be at the stadium at the party. You're that much closer,
Yeah.
and it's
I'll be
kind
in
of cool.
Vegas next year. Don't tell my wife.
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to be, across the street from the war room,
Yeah.
and I mean that's
Right.
kind of it's a crazy thing to think about, and to sit there and watch everything in the way, the blessings, everything that's happened, and how it's all worked itself out. And it's cool to watch that all happen in your life, and watch the way, and you're the right guy for it. And I'm one thing I want to point out, one thing that I want to ask you about, because okay, for those who don't know, I'm going to be involved in the draft party this year for Bucs Report, and I've just already sat here and told you guys I'm not someone who digs in for a year and knows all the guys from going back a year ago, and I'm not these guys who go, I'm not one of the guys who goes and scouts college tape like you do. I rely on you. I rely on the people like you and others that have that knowledge. And I go back and I read and I start putting things together based on what the experts are saying. And I put together my best guesses, my best information. I do that. I do the best I can. And I'm okay at this, and I'll be, I'll the information I have, it's not like I don't have that, but I don't go out and cull that information like you do. You're the one actually there, culling the information, speaking to these players. Who's the last college player you spoke with?
Ooh, Peyton Turner, Houston edge rusher. I love the guy. I think he's a great prospect, potential second round guy. Hopefully he'll be there around the Bucs if they don't take an edge rusher in the first round. Big, long. He started his career as a defensive tackle. They decided to move him out there where he could use his length and his ability a little bit more. The guy, like I said, he played 5 games last year of a 6-game schedule, ended up with 5 sacks, a couple of tackles for losses. He projects to be a really good player on the outside. He can drop back in coverage. He did that a little bit. So I really like that guy. Last guy I've spoken with. There's a multitude of other guys that I spoke that I thought were a lot of fun. Brevin Jordan, tight end from Miami. And I know a lot of people aren't projecting a tight end, but tight end is a situation. It's almost like the running back, right? So everyone's like, oh, we shouldn't take a running back early, or maybe that rules it out. But you look at the roster, and you talked about it earlier tonight.
Where are you putting a tight end? Where are you putting a tight end on this roster?
Well, that's the question mark, right?
A backup to a backup? I mean,
So where are you putting a fifth running back? Where are you putting a fourth tight end? But they did carry 4 tight ends at some point last year, and with guys like Gronk and OJ Howard and Cam Brate still situation. Something's going to happen with that, guys. There's no way they're paying $18 million for 3 tight ends on the roster. It's just, if they do, my mind will be blown, really, because if you get rid of $6 million of that of that money, that opens up money to bring in somebody else.
Plus, well, then you can then you might be able to bring in a Sheldon Richardson.
Exactly. So and with the re-signing of Nacho, with the re-signing of McClendon, and with this defensive tackle draft. Kind of not as good as as it could have been. It's really a down year for DTs, defensive tackles. You could look for them to bring in. I said BPA on the podcast.
I know. I gave you a great one. DT. So detoxing. Yeah, I know.
I'm assuming everyone knows, but just in case.
I'm just laughing. It's well, when that DT is watching the receiver with all that yak.
I know. But maybe that's the guy they look at, Sheldon Richardson.
Right.
It'd be interesting. I think you'd want to bring him on a multi-year contract at that point. And as I said to Johnny Dean, if you look at the situation and he signs a 1-year deal, maybe that's a target they go after next year. But it's going to be interesting. They have a lot of cap space, even with all the contracts they pushed out and guys they signed. They still have a ton of cap space next year. So they could definitely make some different moves. And I think you're right. And speaking with Greg, and I know you spoke with Greg as well, speaking with Luke Easterling last night, both of them echoed the same thought that I kind of feel as well.
So you can name drop for me anytime you want.
I don't think they bring in 8 guys. I don't think 8 guys are drafted on this team. I may be wrong because they may use some of these depth guys at depth positions. Like if you're looking at 4th linebacker, 5th cornerback, return man at the 6th wide receiver, if they decide they can upgrade from someone with Justin Watson. If they don't think Khalil Davis is there,
how likely are the Bucs? How likely are the Bucs to draft in the 32nd position, not trade up or down, but to actually make their pick in that in position 32? How likely do you think that is?
So today was a good exercise. I talked about that mock draft we did on the Locker Room app. Download it if you haven't on Apple. Coming to Android soon, but right now we're on iOS. We got stuck at 32. We wanted to trade down because there was like 3 or 4 Bucs fans in there with me, and we got to 32, and we wanted to trade down out of that 32 spot. But just looking at the people behind us, there was really nobody and no names left. I mean, we had Asante Samuel Jr. on the board, Jalen Phillips on the board, Gregory Rousseau is still on the board, Peyton Turner. I know you got these names mean nothing to you, but if anybody knows who they are, these are some like first round type of guys.
Wait, throw them out again. Throw those names out again.
Peyton Turner, Joe Tryon, Greg Rousseau, Asante Samuel Jr., Sam Cosby.
That's the only one I know is Asante Samuel Jr.
Yeah, Liam Eichenberg. So there were guys there that were like, okay, so maybe someone could trade up. But then if you're looking at them and you're looking at the depth of the edge position, you're looking at the cornerback position, the next couple of guys, we didn't want to go too far back in a trade because we still want to be able to get one of those high-end edge rusher type prospects or a guy like Landon Dickerson or something like that. You're looking at, and the way we had it, I think we had Philadelphia take a cornerback and Dallas take a cornerback, 2 teams that might trade up for him. You look at the next couple teams, and with all those edge rushers there kind of compacted into one little area, you think this guy might – well, is this guy going to trade up into the first round, give up assets if they don't get Phillips, they could get Tryon, or they don't get Tryon, they can get Rousseau. So does someone really want to move up to Landon Dickerson? And these guys that could want to move up for some of these players, do we want to move that far back and take ourselves out of position? So they really might get stuck at 32 and have to take somebody. Not that it's stuck because they're still going to get a decent player out of it, but they could get a similar player moving back a little bit. And it all kind of depends on how the board shakes out earlier in the draft and also right before them. If other teams seize the opportunity to move up into the first round before that pick, you're going to see less teams wanting to move up to 32. We've seen it multiple times in the past years.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it all does.
I mean, if there was ever a team to just trade back and back and back and back and back, now is the time to do that. And just next year, be sitting there with when you've got the guys who may not re-sign, when you need to restock, when you need to reload, this might be the time to do it. I got a quick question for you. Old Salty Bucks is not going to be able to make it tonight. Do you have a few more minutes to stick around?
Yeah, I got a couple more minutes.
Okay, I'm going to play a commercial. We'll be back in about 30 seconds, all right?
1 second before we move on from draft.
Yeah.
The thing I think about the draft, too, is this could be a year where you see them move back from 32, but then use some of those get assets for the next season, but then use some of the current year's assets to move up from 64. So move back from 1 into the second, but then move into the second, move up to try to grab a better quality player. And you might see that in my latest mock draft coming out on Monday.
Okay, very interesting. We'll be right back. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and cover one more thing here real quick. I want to talk about when it comes to the draft. I wanted to get into one thing. I want to let you guys do a little talking. I'm going to open this up. Now, here's the deal. This is what's different about this show. We're not going to argue with you. We're not going to disagree with you. We might discuss it with you. But this is something where you have an opportunity to come on, talk about your opinion, ask your questions. Nobody's going to make fun of you. Nobody's going to say it's a stupid question. Nobody's going to do any of that. It's going to be a nice, fun. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
It's your turn. All right, guys. So Joshua and I would like to know from you guys, and let me go ahead and put the banner up here for a phone number one more time.
BVEV, call in.
Yeah, BVEV, call in. One of the things we want to know from you guys is this. I want to know, and I want to know when you hear media folks talking about the draft, when you hear us talking about what's happening or what's coming up, what would you like to learn? What are things you would like to know? What are the questions you have? Not what do you do? What do you know? What do you not all of that. Not give me your opinion on what the Bucs are going to do. What do you want to know? What are questions you look at it and go, okay, so honestly, I don't really know this. And then you ask the question. Because let me tell you something. I've got a ton of questions. I'm going to fire a couple off at Joshua, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, Joshua, when it comes to the best running back in the draft, I know that there are some different opinions. There are some different things about that. Tell me who your thoughts are. Who do you think running back-wise, honestly, who's got maybe not, there are different kinds of running backs. Some could be a big flash, but they might not last. There are others who are going to be slow and steady and have a long career. Who do you think, out of all the running backs in this year's college class, who do you think has the greatest chance of making the Hall of Fame?
That's a difficult. You have really the big three of running backs, and you've got Najee Harris, who's more of the physical runner. He's a guy, but he's also got a lot more tread on his tires. You have Travis Etienne, who's a better pass catching back of the three, and then you have a guy like Javonte Williams who can kind of do it all. He's the most well-rounded, a little bit smaller. He's only 5'9", but he's the best pass protecting back there is. He's my favorite of the three. It also depends on the system, right, Rick? There's a lot of things that go into play, what kind of O-line they're running behind. But I think if you're talking about pure talent alone, I think Travis Etienne is probably the guy. I think Najee Harris will have a very productive career. But again, he's got a lot of snaps and wear and tear on those tires. And I think Travis will probably go to a system that will highlight what he does best, and that's being that dual threat out of the backfield, 3-down back, and catch it, stay on the field. Maybe Christian McCaffrey light. No one's Christian McCaffrey, but a guy who can run, a guy who can catch, a guy who can,
At least you didn't say he's Brady-esque. Right.
No, he needs to work on his pass blocking a lot. I mean, that's really – I had him drafted in my last – on Monday's mock draft going to the Bucs at number 1. But he's a dangerous, dangerous weapon that they can use in a variety of ways in an offense. And I think if he goes to the right offense, the right scheme with the right quarterback, they'll be able to utilize and bring out the best in him. And that will really go far in his case for making
I have a theory. I have a little bit of a theory about this, okay? It seems like – percentage-wise, more quarterbacks fail than do well. All right, but it seems like running backs, they seem to be able to pick out who's going to be a good running back and who's not a little bit better, or at least with greater accuracy. And I actually have a theory about this and a thought behind this. Usually, the teams that are drafting running backs already have a quarterback. They're already good. They're drafting later, but they're already good. So a running back comes into a team that's already got some stability and is already good and already, on a path. But it seems like quarterbacks, you're not on a path. You're trying to establish a path. You're probably going to a bad team. And that's why I think quarterbacks who get drafted early in the draft maybe are not as successful. But guys who are drafted later tend to be more successful because not necessarily, and Johnny, the professor, may disagree with this. I don't know that it's necessarily that they had time to develop, but I think it's that they've gone to teams that are not desperately in need of a quarterback. So you have a greater chance of success. Does
Yeah, I
that
mean,
does that make any sense at all?
it does, but when you look at it, there's not many of those success stories for later round quarterbacks. I mean, you're looking at obviously Brady's the outlier, but then you have guys like Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, all later round draft picks who have came into the league and had some success. Jimmy Garoppolo, a second round pick that you can. But when you're looking at it, the large number of those guys, a lot of it is just teams and coaches and GMs and front offices not giving a team with a quarterback enough time. If you're going to go in and you're going to draft a quarterback with a top 3, top 5 pick, then you need to be committed to A, your GM, B, your coach, and it needs to be C for the long haul. You need to be able to put the pieces around these guys, because you're right. You're probably not a very good team at that point if you're drafting that high.
Right.
Or you had a down year like San Francisco hit by injuries. There was another team last year who drafted.
Well, that's when I think that you just brought up a very good point, and that's where I think that a team like San Francisco, who's a good team that had a down year, that's going to be drafting high, and they're going to be picking a quarterback, that guy's got a better shot.
Yes, correct, and we've seen that. We've seen that multiple times. The teams trading up and grabbing their quarterback. From deeper in the draft, the Patrick Mahomes. I think they traded up from the 20s to grab Patrick Mahomes and gave up an extra first round pick. You're seeing the later the quarterback is drafted, or the team that has a. How am I trying to say this? Okay, if the later a team trades up to draft a quarterback, usually the better situation they're put in.
Right.
Yes. Jordan Love was taken last year in the first round by Green Bay Packers. He probably won't see the field for another 2 years. But if he does, he's had that time to learn and develop on a good team with a good staff, with a good GM and a good coach around him to kind of build him up, build that culture up, and then we might see.
Or the culture's already there. There's already a winning culture there.
Yeah,
Tim Witherspoon just brought up. Do the quarterbacks drafted early usually fail because they go to a failing team, and then would the blame be on the coaching or the individual or the situation? I'm not even sure, because
it's a circle. It's not a triangle. Right. It's ownership. It starts with ownership. Goes to general manager. Goes to coaching. Because look at these guys are trying to save. Can we? These guys are trying to. These guys are trying to save their butt.
Right.
They're trying to save their butt here, and they're not. And if it's not working in 2 to 3 years, let's cycle out and let's get the next guy, because this isn't working. When instead of having a team that has in place a long-term coaching staff, long-term general manager, and an owner who understands that finding the right guy can be a process. And if you're a team like Jacksonville right now, who they have got a few pieces here and there, or a team like the Jets, a better example, who don't have many pieces, if you need to go into this situation with a coach, with a GM, and with a quarterback, like it's a marriage. Like it's going to take a little bit of time to get to know each other. Then now we're gonna get engaged, and then we're gonna have this engagement period, and then we'll have the marriage, and hopefully once we get married, everything will flourish, and everything will be great, and we'll be grand. And, that's what they kind of need to do sometimes with these quarterbacks, instead of saying, okay, we just met each other. Let's get engaged and married in 2 years. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just get a divorce. We'll blow the whole thing up and start all over again with a new girl. It just doesn't, that's what happens a lot, I think.
Right.
And you're seeing a guy like probably with the second pick there, Zach Wilson's going to go to the Jets, and they need help. They need help on the offensive line. They need help at wide receiver. They need help. They can sign Corey Davis, but whoop-de-doo, Basil. They need running back. They need tight end. I mean, they brought in Cincinnati's tight end, but what is that? Chris Herndon's been injured. Their defense needs a lot of help. They have a couple key players on there. But
Carolina with Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
I think he just didn't have a shot. I think he's better.
That's a different situation, because now with Sam Darnold, you're put into this pressure cooker situation where you have to rush everything, because you only have a limited amount of time. You got the guy on a trade. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Do you pick up the 5th-year option, which is going to be about $20-25 million next year, and commit to that $25 million when you don't know what you've already – it's like a mail-order bride. You don't know what you're getting yet, but you have to commit to this 5th-year option before – the season starts, or he goes out and can become a free agent next year. So it becomes a difficult situation. They're literally, what is that? Married at first sight. That's what they're doing. It's like they've just met each other. They're going to talk to each other for a little bit. They're not going to see what each other looks like out on the field or
Right.
do the dance, and they're going to have to decide, hey, are we paying you $25 million next year?
Right.
Or are we not? And that's a
Well, they can't change quarterbacks every year. I mean, you have Bridgewater. If that doesn't work and you're not happy with that, you bring in Sam Darnold. That doesn't work. You're not happy with that. At some point, you got to start looking at the coaching. You got to start looking at the coaching going, excuse me.
Yeah, well, and that's why some people still have them looking at a guy like Trey Lance if he falls there at number 8. So they have that quarterback in the wings if something doesn't happen to Darnold. But at the same time, now you're giving the sense that you just drafted a quarterback at 8. What does that say to Darnold, who you just traded for? It's, what these franchises do is mind-boggling sometimes when it comes to quarterbacks. And all those different reasons that play out are reasons why quarterbacks, will not have success as high draft picks. And that's pretty much the long-winded answer of your question, Rick. It wouldn't be my answer if it wasn't long-winded.
Wait, I'm not saying a word to that. But I guess part of the reason I asked the question, when it comes to things like when you look at certain positions, now like look overall at all of the players there. Now, okay, I don't know if you know I don't know how much you know about my background, but I've worked for multiple teams. I worked for Pro Football Weekly, but I worked for multiple NFL franchises. And I will tell you that, for instance, working with the Cincinnati Bengals was a completely different experience than it was working with the Falcons or the Bucs. There's a complete different, when they talk about culture, if you could having the opportunity to work for multiple NFL franchises, you see teams that are driven to win, you see a difference.
Cheap.
Well, it's not even just cheap. It's that it's just a different level of professionalism.
Yeah.
A different level of. Here's a great way to describe it. At my job, you are allowed. You have to wear a shirt with a collar. All right, at my day job. Now, that shirt with the collar, some people come in wearing a golf shirt untucked, and it's wrinkled, and it's, the pants are wrinkled, and they come in and they do that. Other people come in with a nicely pressed dress shirt. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a different level of professionalism, a different way that they carry themselves. There's just a different it's the same thing with NFL teams. Okay, you have some teams that it's just. I mean, when I worked for the Bengals, I had to drop off my Jeep. I actually damaged my Jeep, the suspension on my Jeep, because I had the entire back of my Jeep completely filled with cheerleader calendars. Okay. I had done the photo shoot for their cheerleaders in the Bahamas or Jamaica or whatever. And we've got this whole, I've got my Jeep, and I drive up to the stadium where their offices are, and I drove into the stadium. Nobody said a word to me. I drove into the stadium. I got out. I asked somebody who was walking around, where are the offices? They pointed me to an elevator. I got in an elevator. I took the elevator up. I got out of the elevator. I'm walking around. The owner's sitting there with his door open. Everybody's just kind of sitting around doing whatever. It was 10 minutes. I was walking around their offices before anybody said a word to me. Go to Tampa. You can't get in the parking lot.
No.
Without meeting security. No, let alone the building. Yeah. Right? Then you have to have the key card or the whatever to be able to get into the building on top of already getting past security earlier than that. Everything is done very professionally. Then, let's say you're in some crazy way you get into the building. Well, that's just this big room that you then have to have a key card to get back to that back room to get there. And there's a different level of professionalism when you walk into the Advent Health facility and you see the display that everything the Bucs have there. It's phenomenally well done. Everything feels professional. Feels I'm not going to use the word. Well, yes. There's a class and a professionalism to them, and you didn't see that in Cincinnati. And
I've heard horror stories about Cincy.
well, I'll tell you something. We'll talk off the air, but my comparison, the reason I'm bringing this up is what's happening in the rest of the NFC. Okay, in the NFC South, I mean, what's going on with those different teams? I mean, you got to figure the Saints have been that kind of a class organization, the way that they're run, and the drive to win, I know that the Falcons are. I know that they are. Even if they have a bad year, I know the way that team is run. I know the stadium they built. I know that that it is a no compromise excellence drive as a franchise. I don't know what it's like here in Carolina because I hear nothing and I live here. And that's weird. That's weird. I mean, I hear nothing. The most, if you think over the last several years, the biggest PR that we have seen from the Panthers is Gerald McCoy running on the field saying, "I'm home," and seeing that Cam grabbing him and looking in the camera and saying, "One man's trash is another man's treasure." I don't know if you remember that and all of that. So this feels to me like this division is the Bucs to lose.
Oh yeah, hands down. I'm going to have a piece out hopefully this weekend. It's been crazy. It's been so busy around here, even though it hasn't been. It's like, but I'm going to have a piece out comparing the NFC South this year to the AFC East of the past with Brady in there. What are these teams doing? Are they going to try to be competitive here? Or are they going to say, hey, let's wait till Brady's gone or till Brady's almost gone and start going? Because it looks like this Buccaneers team, especially with Brady, is just on a different level than any of these other teams here. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones got question marks about their age and injury concerns. Obviously, there's a huge question mark surrounding both Carolina and the Saints with their quarterback position. The Saints had to get rid of a ton of guys that were key players on that team because of salary cap issues. The Panthers, they missed Christian McCaffrey all year last year, but I just think they're not there yet. I think they still need to build on that defense, build a little bit on that offense as well.
But culture-wise, it doesn't even feel like it from the Panthers.
No, and I don't think it's there. I don't think it's been there for the Falcons since the Super Bowl loss. I think that has damaged the core guys in that group, and I don't think that's something that they've been able to recover from.
I think you're correct about that. I think you're 100% correct.
And I think that's starting to linger over towards the Saints too. How many years are we going to win this division, have a good team, and then choke in the playoffs? How many years is this going to happen? Now we don't have Drew Brees, and now the Bucs look like really good. And now,
do you realize the slap in the face that is to both the Falcons and the Saints that they've been good for years? They've been trying to. The Falcons were up 28-3. And the slap in the face. Brady's now a Buck. I mean, that's two slaps in the face. Yeah. That's a double whammy on that team. And then the Saints, who year after year after year, give it a shot, give it a shot, give it a shot, give it a shot, and the Bucs come in year one, boom, okay, done. Yeah. It's got to be.
Not only that, the way you manhandled them in the second game of the season, Drew Brees back there, and then they come into your house and slap you in the face and pick Drew Brees off 3 times and, end your season like that in your home building where you can finally have fans now.
Right.
And it just, you have all that crap being talked by Cam Jordan, and now you've lost half your team, including your starting quarterback, and now you're going to have to go with the Buccaneers' former quarterback, who you used to talk crap about and pick off all the time. And now you got to know after,
is he really starting?
I cannot wait for that Saints
I
game.
can't either. Is he going to start?
Taysom Hill is not a quarterback. He's not.
No,
he's very limited in what he can do. He might start the year, but he's very limited in what he can do. But Jameis Winston's is still the same guy. How can you tell me by sitting behind Drew Brees and Sean Payton for a year that suddenly, miraculously, his decision-making has gone way up? It's been crazy. I mean,
it's all LASIK. It's all LASIK.
The LASIK. Guy's always had the skills. He can throw the ball. He can throw it accurately for the most part. He can, make plays on with his legs. We've seen the Mike Evans stuff. We've seen multiple things he can do. His problem is decision making. And I mean, a lot of the things we talk about a guy like Kyle Trask last year, and how he had over 40 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, but took 20 sacks. To me, that's a smarter quarterback, because if you look at some of those sacks, what he did was he took the sack. Take the sack.
Who's starting? Who is going to start though, Joshua? Who's going to start in New Orleans? Who's going to start in New Orleans?
The season, it's going to be Taysom Hill to start, and that's why I don't think we'll see a Saints Buccaneers matchup to open up the season. I think they want to save that, push it down the road for when Jameis Winston becomes the eventual starter, and that's going to be they'll probably have 2 primetime games with the Saints again this year.
Wow, that's.
When you're looking at the Bills, the Pats, the Saints, and then maybe the Cowboys.
Yeah, you think that Pats game is going to be primetime? I'm kidding. Man, I'm totally kidding.
That's a Sunday night. That's a Sunday night primetime circle.
Yeah.
They might do like a Bucs Cowboys Thursday night. They'll do Bills on a Monday night probably. They'll do a Saints. They'll do the Patriots. That's an away game, and then they'll do another one. I don't know.
But with the flexing of the schedule now and the way they've changed that and all that, you're going to see a lot of primetime games. Everybody, I mean, seriously, get your sleep now, because there's going to be a lot of primetime games this year.
Well, we'll get 2 Thursday games because the opening starts on a Thursday to start the season, and then they'll probably.
You're only supposed to get one. No, you're only supposed to get one Thursday. Everybody gets a Thursday, so that's 16 weeks. Oh no, because one team.
17.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah,
I never thought about that. Did they count that opening week as that Thursday game that teams have to play?
Well, that's interesting. Because if
I never thought about that.
Yeah, because every team got a Thursday night game, and now there's one more week. So instead of there being 16, which is 32, now there's going to be 34. So some team is going to have 2 Thursday night games.
The Bucs, because they suck on Thursday nights.
Yeah, they do. They do. That's going to be interesting.
The Cowboys, or I think the Bills will be a Monday night.
They never. They. I don't know, because you're naming games that are good games. And it just seems like the Thursday games are always like, I don't know.
That's why the Cowboys finished, 3rd in the division? So I'm saying, it could be, on paper and to sound, it sounds like a good game. But we don't know what the Cowboys are going to look like, how they're going to fix that defense. They could score at will last year, the first 4 games until Dak got injured. But they couldn't stop anybody the first 4 games either.
Yeah, it just seems like
remember the Falcons game? Early in the season when they.
Yeah, it seems like Thursday games always end up being things like, I don't know.
The Giants,
or like Cincinnati against the Texans. That seems to be like what the Thursday night games are like. Right. That's just like.
I think the new TV deal is changing that, though. I think that's going to. They're gonna give them better games. They're gonna give ABC, and that's why Monday Night Football is getting that flex schedule towards the end of the season too, where they can switch out some of these crap games that are happening at the end of the year on Monday night to be able to have some good games as well.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know how that whole thing.
We'll see. The schedule comes out in May, so we'll get to see how that all.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that. That was my next question: is when does the schedule come out? So May.
It'll come out probably mid to late May. There's a lot of things. Now that we have a 17th game, it's all about, and we know that every 17th game is going to be a home game.
Right.
It's all about fitting in and seeing. I haven't had any reports about an extra bye week, so I think it's just still going to be one bye week. If you're a Bucs fan, say a prayer, or whatever you do spiritually, religiously, whatever. Just talking to yourself. I don't know if you're a weirdo.
Smoke signals, do a rain dance, do whatever you got to do.
Just pray for a mid to late bye week for the Buccaneers, because having an early bye week with a lot of these veterans this year, it's going to put them in a tough position. So
and they had one last year, so I got a bad
week
feeling.
13 was great. Exactly. I feel like it's going to. I'm hoping it's like week 5 or week 6.
That's
detrimental, and that makes winning the division #1 seed all that more important. Luckily for them, they have the 5th best schedule this year, based on strength of schedule of last year.
That's always, but I got to say this: that's always garbage. They always say that because teams that were good last year are not necessarily good this year, and by the time you're 4 or 5, 6 weeks into the season, everybody's going, well, the future schedule looks this tough. It's completely different, because then it's based on what they're doing this season.
Well, you're facing a lot of, you're like I said, Dallas, what they do on that defense. You're facing a guy like, Sam Darnold for the first time. You're facing a guy like Jalen Hurts his first time. There's a lot of guys that they could potentially come in there and, coming in
Yeah.
against that defense and have real strong struggles. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time. You have been you've been a friend and a champ tonight for sticking in here with me. I appreciate it, and you stayed extra. Much appreciated. And if you will do me a favor and just tell everybody. Oh, say hello there.
Say hi, Cannon.
Hi.
Hi, Cannon. How are you?
I mean, we got a break-in in the studio. All right, get out here, buddy. I'll be right back.
All right.
Friday night party without a little break-in from a kid who's supposed to be sleeping at 10:30 at night.
Well, you go take care of that, but first of all, tell everybody where to find you.
Absolutely. You guys can find me on Twitter at Joshua_C_Allen. You guys can find me there. Find me every Thursday night on the Audible at 8:15, 8:30. Depends on who I got for guests. We'll start it early. We'll start it late. Making the right call here on Bucs Report. You can also find me on Locker Room app at JC Allen. Get on there if you have Apple, iOS. Great things happening on there. Just bought by Spotify, a lot of things. And always on BucsReport.com for the articles. You can find me there as well. But
And you can hear him on the Buccaneer Report, on the Bucs Report podcast this week. So, Joshua, go. You got something to handle there. You got something to take care of there. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. And Bucs fans, have a great night. Thanks for tuning in.
Have a great night. Someone's in trouble. I think somebody's probably about to definitely end up in bed. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you guys for sticking in here. It's been a fun night. Covered a lot of information. There's been a lot going on. We have no idea right now. As I look at it, we have no idea what the Bucs are going to be drafting. But there's, I think, pretty much starting this coming week, get ready for a deep dive into the draft. Get ready for getting down dirty and into the nitty gritty of all of it. And I think we've got the right team of people here to bring the right information to you, so that when you watch the draft this year, maybe it'll be a little different. Maybe you will be even just a little bit more educated than you normally are. And when you go in there, you've got arrows in your quiver. That when different guys are available and you see someone dropping and you know who they are and what's going on. I want to thank all of you guys for being a part of the show. Thank you guys. A great job as always. Christopher Cole, thank you for all the comments and all the and everything. Johnny, you are the man, my friend. You are the man. Thank you. It is very appreciated what you did. Fred, I see you there, brother. Tim Witherspoon, as always, coming through. Stephen Glasker, as always, coming through. And guys, I will be back tomorrow night. Tomorrow night at 8:30. We'll be back for What's Cooking in the South, and the miscreants will be there to do their usual miscreanting, and that always gets crazy. So if this show was a little tame for you, if this show was a little calm, show up tomorrow night, because you never know what's going to happen. Tomorrow night, right here at the intersection of food and football, it's What's Cooking in the South. Sunday night, and I played a commercial for it, but I'll play another one coming up here. Sunday night is live from the cheap seats. And I told you tomorrow, maybe we'll go off the rails. Sunday's always off the rails. Sunday, you have no idea what's coming. Get ready. I mean, seriously, buckle up, because it's one heck of a ride. We have a great time. BVEV, thank you for being a part of this, a part of the show. I want to hear more from you, BVEV. I want to actually hear from you. When it's your turn, I want to hear from you. You've been around here too long. I appreciate, your comments, and you're somebody I'd pay attention to. So please let me hear from you. All you guys, thanks for being here. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night on What's Cooking in the South, Sunday night on Live from the Cheap Seats, and Monday night right back here on the Bucs Report Show. Thanks for being here, everybody. You guys are awesome. Go Bucs.